The trials of Karen Read have become one of the most watched legal dramas in recent memory, centered around the tragic death of Boston police officer John O'Keefe. On a snowy January night in 2022, O'Keefe was found unresponsive in the snow outside a home in Canton, Massachusetts. Prosecutors allege that Read, his girlfriend, struck him with her SUV in a fit of rage after a night of drinking and then left him there to die. The case quickly escalated beyond a typical vehicular homicide as Read was charged with second-degree murder. But her defense claims she's being framed and that O'Keefe was beaten inside the house by others, suggesting a conspiracy and cover-up involving law enforcement. The courtroom has seen explosive testimony, conflicting expert opinions, and a divided public, many of whom believe Read is a scapegoat. Her first trial ended in a mistrial, setting the stage for a second round filled with even more drama. And tonight we are live from the courthouse with all the big moments from today as the defense dog bite expert undergoes intense cross-examination as the retrial of the century continues. I'm Vinnie Politan. Great to have you with us tonight here on Closing Arguments. Big hour coming up here on Closing Arguments, and then another big hour with Vinnie Politan Investigates. But let's start here. This case against Karen Read, for prosecutors, they have several different roads to a conviction, to convincing this jury beyond a reasonable doubt that Karen Read's SUV struck and killed John O'Keefe. They have expert testimony putting together the pieces based upon some of the digital evidence from John O'Keefe's phone and from the text stream data. They have an alleged confession by Karen Read. I did it, I hit him, right? But what they have that perhaps was the strongest argument in most cases was the smoking taillight. A broken taillight on her car and then pieces of taillight on the front yard and the street where the victim is found. In most cases of motor vehicle accidents or motor vehicle crashes or motor vehicle versus pedestrian, it would be game over. Like, do you need anything else? Broken taillight pieces found at the scene of the death. 1 + 1 = 2. In most cases. This case is different, of course. It's always been different from the beginning. And this is a case where both sides are conceding that that taillight was broken. And the argument is about how broken was it? Karen Read says it was cracked when she backed up into John O'Keefe's truck when she was leaving her home, going to meet Kerry Roberts and Jen McCabe that following morning, early in the morning. And she's saying, yeah, the taillight was cracked. But it was cracked because of what happened in the driveway, not what happened at 34 Fairview. So when have you ever seen a case with a broken taillight, and we've got two different places that the taillight may have been broken in the same night? Like, never. But it's part of this case. Then we have video of the SUV from several different perspectives, but it's unclear video. Like, you look at it and like, you see what you want to see. Let's be honest. If you're a free Karen Read person, you see a slightly broken taillight. If you're a Karen Read is guilty person, you're saying, of course, there's a broken taillight. She broke it when she struck John O'Keefe, right? So that doesn't necessarily clear things up. So are there any witnesses, anyone that actually could come into court and say what they saw that morning? Well, we have heard from Jen McCabe, and Kerry Roberts said, I believe that they saw the taillight was broken and that Karen Read was talking about a broken taillight. But the defense is saying these are not unbiased witnesses. All right, well, you've got police officers who said they saw the broken taillight and they took pictures of it, etc. But again, the defense is saying these are not unbiased witnesses. So there's one unconnected officer, a member of law enforcement, not from Canton, not from the state police. His name is Nicholas Barros. He's from the Dayton Police Department. He helped seize Karen Read's SUV. And what he said today, well, let's go to Court TV crime and justice correspondent Matt Johnson, who is live from outside the courthouse in Dedham, because, Matt, the reaction that I've seen online, the reaction that I had, to me, this is the first day that perhaps we're going, oh, wow, for the defense. Like, there have been a lot of moments for the prosecution where we've said, wow, this is better than first time around. I think this is one of the first times where we're kind of saying, wow, this is more impactful than first time around, with Nicholas Barros, the officer who testified today, who also testified last time. This time just seemed different.
Different effect, different mood. And this was actually bombshell testimony. This could be the star witness for the defense. You have this police officer, Nicholas Barros, who responded to the tow incident at Karen Reed's parents' house there in Dighton. He's a Dighton police officer. He describes what he saw, and he said that there was still taillight there, that it was cracked, but it wasn't completely missing. Here's his key testimony from today. Take a listen.
This is the afternoon of January 29th, 2022, correct?
Correct.
Before the vehicle had been seized formally by Trooper Proctor and Sergeant Buchanan, correct?
Correct.
There was a crack. Do you mean there was a piece missing?
A piece was missing.
Can you describe for the jurors kind of what that piece looked like, how big it was, how small, the shape, as you would call it?
The piece was about maybe this big.
Is that maybe the size of a dollar bill, maybe 6 inches?
6 inches.
And how wide?
Maybe that wide, maybe 3 inches, 2 inches, somewhere in there.
Is that consistent with the black Lexus SUV that you saw at the Reed residence?
That was the black Lexus. That was not the taillight the day I was there.
Can you do me a favor, Mr. Wolk? With the court's permission, could we zoom in on the right rear taillight, please?
Okay.
Do you see the condition of that taillight as it's depicted in this photo?
I do.
Sergeant Barros, is this the condition of the right rear taillight when you showed up at the Reed household at around 3:15 in the afternoon on January 29th, 2022?
Absolutely not.
What's different about this photo, sir?
That taillight is completely smashed out.
So on cross-examination, you guessed it, Special Prosecutor Hank Brennan questioned him about his memory, questioned whether or not his story changed, if his testimony changed from last year. Remember, he testified last year. So here's what I want to do. I want to play part of his cross-examination and his testimony from last year. Let's listen.
Could you show me anywhere in your testimony? Anywhere. Where you made any statement about that photo being inconsistent with what you saw in Dighton on January 29, 2022.
It's not in there. I saw that there was some damage to the right rear taillight. To my best ability and recollection, that taillight was not completely damaged. It was cracked, and a piece was missing, but not completely damaged.
So again, the defense, Vinnie, is doubling down on conspiracy and cover-up here, and you have this law enforcement official on the stand testifying that he saw red from the taillight. He saw that it was cracked, but he's not associated with state police. He's not associated with Canton PD. Vinnie?
And the big difference this year is the way this was presented to the jury with the photograph. I don't remember him last year looking at the actual photograph and saying, that's not the way it was, but I don't think anyone showed him the photograph last year. Like, I don't know why they wouldn't have, but nobody showed him the photo last year. This year they did, and he says that's absolutely not what it looked like when I saw it. Powerful stuff. Wow. There was a lot more today. Like, most of the day we were talking about dogs, and then the bombs were dropping in the courtroom later on in the day. But let's talk about the dog bite expert. Again, this was a big witness, but again, I think it comes in secondary to what we just heard. But the cross-examination, this is Hank Brennan's forte, right? This is what he does, I think, best, and perhaps the reason he was brought in here, because he's really, a very experienced defense attorney at this point. What about that cross?
Yeah, he's fantastic, and you really see him in a different light when he acts as his former, which is defense attorney mode, and he's in that cross-examination. And today was all about the dog bite expert until that bombshell with Dighton police officer. But we had Dr. Marie Russell back on the stand for a second day of her testimony. She was mainly on cross, and yesterday she had opined her opinion was that the injuries to Officer John O'Keefe's arm was the result of a dog attack, a dog bite. Well, today she was questioned about her memory and whether or not she's even qualified to make that opinion. Take a listen.
Are you saying that nails of a dog are so similar to the teeth that you can't tell the difference between them when you're looking at a wound? And so when you first described this wound as teeth or claws, at the most recent hearing, you had a certain opinion that this was teeth, didn't you?
Yes, I was leaning towards teeth. Correct. That's what I believed.
And today you're saying you don't know if these were teeth or claws.
Not with 100% certainty.
Then there was a huge side argument along with her testimony. How much interaction has she had with the defense team? And during her testimony, while she was continuing today, she rode with the defense team. That's not unusual. She's from out of town, but did they help her with her report? Did she discuss the case? Because there was that moment on cross-examination when she said that she would like to see some of her prior testimony. Remember, she was voir dired last year. She testified last year. She was again questioned outside the presence of the jury this year before her testimony. There is a lot of testimony that was made reference to, and she asked to see some of that, and then it was pointed out that the defense team recommended that she ask for a transcript if she needed to refresh her memory.
Yeah, well, and that shows, you know, she's not a normal expert, right? She doesn't do this for a living. There's a difference between, you know, men and women who have a career of testifying as experts, and then experts who do their work and then come into court and testify, like the brain surgeon, like this doctor. Okay, Robert Alessi today. Well, hit like another decibel of volume today in one of his arguments, and I think it caught everyone's attention. This motion for a mistrial, what happened?
Yeah, we didn't see this in the first trial either. I mean, this was another big moment today on day 26, the third day of the defense case. And it was during a line of questioning where Hank Brennan was in cross-examination of the dog bite expert, Dr. Marie Russell. He was asking her if she knew anything about the DNA testing for dog DNA on Officer John O'Keefe's clothing. And then right away, the defense asked for a mistrial. Let's play those moments for you.
You're aware, aren't you, that those holes were swabbed for traces of dog DNA?
Objection, Your Honor. I'd like to approach, please.
Okay, come on up.
He intentionally brought up DNA. Based upon that intentional mention, the defense moves strongly, vigorously for a mistrial with prejudice.
The Commonwealth is entitled on cross-examination to explore theories and facades that the defense creates if there is actual evidence that undermines or contradicts the representations that they are trying to portray to this jury.
So obviously no mistrial was declared, but Judge Beverly Cannoni, she took it very seriously. Those arguments, of course, were outside of the presence of the jury after that long sidebar discussing it. And then she took it under advisement. There was a 30-minute delay in the trial as she considered those arguments. And, you know, it was just another big moment for this trial. There's been so many today and this week.
I told you yesterday, Big Monday, and I said I'll see you on Big Tuesday, and today is, yeah, bigger than Monday, Big Tuesday. Okay, what happened after court today, Matt?
Okay, so we met up with the defendant, Karen Reed, and it really appears that there is a lot more media getting ready as this is in the home stretch, and there's cameras everywhere. Karen Reed is answering our questions on the steps, and then she's making her way to her car. It resembles what we saw last year, and I know you were here for that. I asked her if she plans on testifying. No clear answer there. But we also talked about that police officer who testified with that bombshell. Take a listen.
What sort of stood out for you?
That the taillight was not completely smashed. I think the word the independent cop, as the prosecutor himself called him, was it was not completely smashed in or busted in at 3 p.m. as it went into state police custody. That's all that matters.
Nick's memory, do you think he had any issues toward the end? He seemed to...
I think he might have been, wrong. I think he might have been a little confused about the day of the week line of questioning, but his testimony hasn't changed. He was subpoenaed by the prosecution and said it was damaged and not completely broken a year ago. And he said that again today.
Right after that, I got the last question in. I said, how's your defense going? How do you feel? And she said that she feels very good. Now, she's already told us that this is going to be a much more robust defense case this time around. We're already seeing witnesses that we didn't see last year. Tomorrow, we may see some more of the friends from the waterfall that weren't called. We saw them at the courthouse here as the day was wrapping up. So, again, we're seeing a lot of witnesses that the state hasn't called, and this defense team, they're leaving every single day with smiles on their face.
Matt, you weren't kidding about all the media starting to show up, all the Johnny-come-latelys, right? We've been there from the beginning. Yeah. Matt Johnson in the courtroom. Thank you so much. All right, let's bring in our Karen Reed trial insiders. Criminal defense attorney Joseph Krowski Jr., trial attorney Wayne Dennison, you remember him from the Johnny Depp trial. Kevin Lenahan, YouTuber, author of the book Storm of Suspicion, The Karen Reed Trials. And Karen Reed supporter and insider Nick Rocco. Great to see everyone tonight. Nick, Matt just said everyone's smiling. Are you smiling tonight?
I'm smiling. No delay on my camera, though, which is good.
Yeah. So tell me, did you see anything different from this witness today? Because I did. Because last year, I don't remember him actually looking at the photograph and then specifically saying that it was absolutely not the way it looked when he saw it up at Karen Reed's father's home.
Well, the reason why we didn't see that is because he was the Commonwealth's witness. And once he stated that it was cracked and missing a piece, that pretty much put Adam Lally at a blunder. He had nowhere to go. If he showed a picture, it could have been disastrous for him if he had shown that picture. So I think his line of questioning kind of tapered off at that point. And then the defense got a good answer. So there was no really reason to cross-examine him. They had no questions for him the last time. But then this time around, obviously being the defense witness, they're going to show him that picture and ask the question that we've all been waiting for. Is this what it looked like when you saw it? And the answer was absolutely not. And anybody that has seen the video at 5:07 in the morning leaving John O'Keefe's driveway knows that that picture we're seeing on the screen right now is not the same taillight.
All right, Joseph Krowski Jr., how do prosecutors explain this? What's the explanation?
Well, first of all, we've got to really start taking a much more discerning look over the testimony. We're throwing around this term bombshell much too cavalierly. Let's break down the testimony of Officer Barros. He actually testified on direct examination that he had compared the taillight with a photo at the last trial. That was cleaned up on cross-examination. Karen Reed had a broken taillight on January 29th into January 30th, 2022. Karen Reed has admitted that she had a taillight that was so damaged that she had to pick pieces out of it and she could see the light bulb. On cross-examination, Officer Barros was presented with not just the ring camera from 5:08 at One Meadows, 5:08 a.m., but the well-being photograph at 8:23 a.m. from One Meadows. And if you would post that picture, if you have access to it, it clearly shows approximately 20% of that tail light missing. Now, the picture that we're now comparing it to is later on in the day when it's in a controlled setting and all the snow is melted. You still can't get around the debris field of tail light at the scene and pieces, fragments of that tail light in the clothing of John O'Keefe. So It was a good moment on direct, but it was certainly cleaned up on cross-examination.
Wayne, what do you think the impact is on this jury, right? Those are the 12 that matter. They weren't here last year. They're just hearing all this stuff fresh this year. What do they take away from this?
I'm very much in the bombshell camp. The testimony that it was absolutely not the same as he saw it when he picked up is very clear testimony. It wasn't eroded significantly on cross-examination. And if you're a juror, you're looking at this officer who has no horse in this race, and now you're scratching your head.
All right. Kevin, I want to show you the image that we put together here based upon the testimony. So this witness said the big part of the tail light that we've been talking about was intact, and that it was the bottom half of the far right corner of the tail light that was missing. Tell me what your takeaway is from this. Do we not trust the eyewitness? Do we not trust the officer? What do we do here?
So I've been consistent the whole time I've been talking about this case that I'm skeptical in any case, but especially cases like this where there's really in the public, it's a high profile case of eyewitness testimony. That's why I prefer trusting things that are not open to interpretation. There's a tendency for some people, a lot of people, to get drawn by the spotlight, to want to impress the crowd. I'm not saying that's the case with Barros, but there does seem to be some indication that he's changed his testimony, did seem to want to appeal to that crowd this time, for whatever his reasons are. When he's looking at the taillight on that day, he's in the middle of a blizzard, blinding snow, and that taillight is not only covered with snow to a large degree, but because the corner piece is missing, the housing would have been filled with snow. So what exactly did he see? How good is his memory now? He seemed to think initially that his memory was more clear now than it was then, but then under cross-examination, he walked a lot of that back. So, I want to focus on things like that evidence that can't be really fudged with, such as the immutable timeline that shows there was no time and we know where the vehicle was all day, and it was either under surveillance or Karen was within it, until it reached the Sally Port. And by then it was too late to plant that evidence that was found 3 feet down in the snow at ground level. So to me, this evidence just wasn't very important. We'll see what it affects the jury.
5 seconds, Joe, because I saw your finger. 5 seconds.
You just saw the picture. Make the comparison for yourself and look at it objectively. And maybe this officer does want to be involved. He drove 90 minutes from a small country town to go to the Omni Hotel and meet with the defense. It's kind of an unusual measure for a police officer to take in a case.
Go ahead, Nick. I'll give you the last word.
Look, I mean, you look at the tow truck footage, and it's that piece missing, and the rest of it's red. So how can you say that at 8:07 it doesn't look like it? You look at the tow truck. We all have eyes. There is red in that picture. There's red in that video. The taillight was there when Barros saw it. It's not there anymore.
All right. Our insiders will stay with us. The debate continues. Up next, we'll talk about the cross-examination of the dog bite expert, plus coming up next hour. Tonight on Vinnie Politan Investigates, is there any evidence of a conspiracy and planted taillight pieces at the scene of John O'Keefe's death? Tonight, we investigate.
Join Court TV's Vinnie Politan with the latest and breaking true crime stories.
Now, let's look at the other side of all of that.
Vinnie Politan Investigates, tonight, 9/8 Central, only on Court TV.
Karen Reed is in the midst of the retrial of the century.
She is factually innocent. She's guilty.
There's something wrong in this county.
Come at me.
The Karen Reed murder retrial. Live coverage weekday mornings, 8/7 Central on Court TV.
Were you able to come to any conclusions or opinions about the source and nature of the injuries that you see depicted on that exhibit?
Yes.
And what is your opinion and conclusion concerning those injuries?
Those wounds were inflicted as the result of a dog attack.
All right, this image of John O'Keefe's arm has been the center of controversy for years now in this case, and that's Dr. Marie Russell, the dog bite expert, giving her opinion for prosecutors. But you don't just give your opinion. Then you've got to be cross-examined by the other side. Take a look.
Were you aware that very small fragments, shards of plastic that match the broken taillight of the defendant's Lexus were found when criminologists scraped Mr. O'Keefe's shirt and sweatshirt?
Yes, I became aware of that. I don't believe that fragments that are randomly in the sweatshirt or clothing would cause the parallel abrasions, the pattern of the parallel abrasions that we saw in the arm.
Are you telling us to a reasonable degree of medical certainty that these type of fragments that were found in his clothes could not have caused the superficial abrasions on John O'Keefe's right arm?
They can cause superficial abrasions, but not in that pattern that we saw on the arm.
It was an interesting moment of that cross-examination. Let's bring back in our insiders, Joseph Krowski Jr., Wayne Dennison, Kevin Lenahan, and Nick Rocco. Help me here, Kevin. Where is he going with this? Because I would never think it was the small fragments that caused that. I would think it would be the bigger pieces, the sharper pieces of the taillight that would cause those patterns.
Yeah, I agree. I think what happened here, though, is because you lawyers are very clever. So the fact that, or maybe sometimes make a mistake. So the fact that Dr. Russell not only testified that John's wounds were caused by dog bites, but she also went so far as to say they could not have been caused by a vehicle. So this opens up the door to all this questioning about other evidence that Hank hammered today, the prosecutor, about what she didn't look at. So, such as the microscopic taillight pieces in the clothing, the debris field at the crime scene, the tech stream data. These are all things you would normally not ask someone like Dr. Russell about, but because she opined on it, it gave him a chance to introduce that afresh to the jury, and I think that was very powerful.
So the jury is seeing this image, and I'm sure they all have an opinion when they first see it, but they've got to listen to the evidence. But they've also seen, Wayne Dennison, the blue paint demo. Which two images do you think is more compelling? This blue paint demo or the arm with someone saying that's a dog bite?
Ultimately, I think that that's going to be a jury call. The blue paint demo was not, in fact, particularly persuasive when I saw it. It did seem a little contrived at times. And although Hank Brennan was very effective in trying to get to this witness through cross-examination and at various points did a reasonable job doing it, there were several times where she just simply got to reinforce her opinion and, in fact, rendered opinions that are even more difficult for the prosecution.
Let's take a listen to a little bit more of that cross-examination.
The defendant had undergone a very stressful event, finding her loved one in the snow. And so after a stressful event, many people suffer from what's called an acute grief reaction. It's very common. And they do things that seem to be irrational. They ramble. They act bizarrely. They make statements that are irrational, that don't make sense, and they oftentimes tend to blame themselves.
Does this happen moments after a stressful event?
Oh, yes.
Does it happen months later when you go on 20/20 or Nightline?
I've never seen that situation.
Yeah, no.
A grief reaction can last years. It usually is very brief, but it can last years.
All right. Did Brennan get it done here, Joseph? Did he undermine the credibility of this doctor and her dog bite opinion?
So she has no credibility in this regard in this field. She's an ER doctor. In 20 years or 20 plus years, she's treated dog bites. She's never on a single occasion had an injury presented to her from an unknown source where she followed a prescribed methodology and diagnosed and determined it came from a dog bite. She went from punctures to now they're all surface abrasions, probably because she's read the ME report where the medical examiner who looked at them firsthand determined that they were just abrasions. If those are, and now she's vacillating between bites and claw impressions. If those were from a dog, you have 6 different areas, all from the maxilla, the top jaw. So we're out there looking for a bottomless, a jawless dog. The other problem with that is her opining on the psychological aspects of Karen Reed's reaction the next morning shows that she just has too much confirmation bias, and she's trying too hard to follow through on an agenda as an advocate. One final thing, cross-examination, something that was new to me that came out. The Commonwealth was allowed to get in that the federal government hired Dr. Walsh from the FBI or from the Armed Services, which is an elite group of forensic pathologists who determined it was not consistent with a dog bite. I'll put him up against Dr. Russell any day of the week.
All right, Nick, what are your thoughts here? How did this all turn out today?
So Joe's doing what Hank did. And that's why Bob Alessi got on the stand and actually read the report of Dr. Walsh. And he said there was not enough information to determine what this was caused from. He didn't say it wasn't from a dog bite, but he also didn't say it was from a car. So he was kind of stuck in the middle there. And you know, thankfully, Robert Alessi did read that out loud for the truth to come out. But now this is the third person. You have Dr. Scotty Bello, you have Dr. Marie Russell, and Dr. Walsh, all saying that this isn't from a car, or there isn't enough information to say that this is from a car, and that it could be from something else, which is spelled out, reasonable doubt. The Commonwealth is saying Karen Reed struck with the vehicle.
Evidence.
But listen,
other evidence, man.
Okay, and ARCA hasn't testified yet, so you guys are all stuck on this blue paint. Last trial, ARCA wasn't allowed to show any of their videos or their testing. This time around, it's going to be different. The jury wants to see what it looks like to be hit at 24 miles per hour, and they're going to see it from true experts that were hired by the feds that confirmed Karen Reed did not strike John O'Keefe with the vehicle, and there's only one other option if he wasn't struck by the vehicle. So we'll leave it at that.
How do you explain John O'Keefe's phone only moving for 20 seconds when he got out of the car? When did this so-called dog bite happen? I'm not stuck on the blue paint. I'm stuck on the debris field of taillight debris from Karen Reed's car and her admissions and all of this other data and the circumstantial evidence that corroborates and supports it.
If they were admissions, she would have been arrested on the spot because other witnesses were claiming that she said I hit him in front of a police officer. They would have taken her down and arrested her. And as far as the data goes, the timing has reasonable doubt attached to it because that's why DeSorga came in and said that the math and the adjustments were not correct. And that's why he was brought in, just to go over what they had done. And again, whether you believe it or not, those jury members, 18 of them sitting there, have thoughts in their head of, well, do I believe this one or do I believe that one? And reasonable doubt means you cannot find someone guilty.
All right. We've got more when we come back. The big motion for the mistrial today. Things getting heated in the courtroom in Dedham.
Attorney Brennan, just with regard to Dr. Russell, in open court in front of the jury, used the concept of DNA in this case. He has introduced it and brought it in for the very first time in front of the jury. He has done so intentionally. He intentionally brought up DNA. Based upon that intentional mention, the defense moves strongly, vigorously for a mistrial with prejudice. A mistrial with prejudice.
Robert Alessi fired up today making this motion. I mean, I watched it, then I had to watch it again. I'd never had seen him at this volume. Take a look.
There has been no mention in this trial of DNA with regard to the topic, with regard to what Mr. Brennan has raised. There has been none. Specifically, the prosecution had, in the first trial, had a witness, Terry Kuhn, with regard to DNA. For whatever reason, the prosecution has chosen not to bring that witness in who would testify perhaps to DNA. As a result of that strategic decision that the prosecution made, there's been no mention. I want to be very clear. The defense has been incredibly assiduous and meticulous about not mentioning DNA in any fashion, directly or indirectly.
All right, he mentioned Terry Kuhn. I want to show you that testimony from the DNA, the doggy DNA witness from the first trial. Take a look.
For the canine qPCR testing, we did not see any canine DNA. So for both the swabs, we did see pig.
You were able to detect the presence of pig DNA, correct?
Correct.
And I think you said on direct examination that that could come from a number of sources, including food sources, right?
Correct.
Could come from dog treats.
Pardon me? Yes.
Could come from dog treats.
All right, pig DNA from dog treats. Wayne Dennison, does this eliminate the opportunity for them to really argue and convince a jury that this was a dog bite if there's no doggy DNA?
No, the witness was pretty good in trying to explain that away, in particular because of the 2-week delay in the testing of the clothing. That said, I didn't really understand the vigor of Mr. Lessie's motion for mistrial. It seemed completely within the realm of appropriate cross-examination to ask questions that are factually based, but are not within the scope of the direct. That's the Massachusetts rule. You get to do it. I'm glad that Judge Cannone gave it some thought and spent 30 minutes thinking about it. I'm not sure in the same situation that I would have spent 5 minutes thinking about it.
Where'd the pig DNA come from, Joe?
Oh, that could be a byproduct of food. That could have been from touch DNA, contact DNA at any of the bars. I don't have an explanation for you, but just to go back to what Wayne said, in Massachusetts, remember this is cross-examination. On direct, they made a big point of that differential diagnosis, trying to exclude other things, so it was fair game to cross-examine an expert witness on even hearsay about things that she either did consider or should have considered or did not consider. So not only was it not a mistrial, Judge Cannone actually allowed the prosecution to continue along that line of questioning.
Nick, why wasn't any dog DNA found?
Well, you got to ask yourself, who's the one that swabbed the shirt and sent it to the lab? I mean, you know, Michael Proctor had a hand in the swabbing. So he got fired. He's no longer a state trooper. I think if that gets brought out to the jury, the fact that he was the one that did the swabbing of this, it goes to the credibility of Michael Proctor and what the jury believes him to be at this point. They have not met him yet. They've heard a lot about him. They've heard, you know, his text messages, and it shows bias in the situation. So now I guess if the defense was to bring this up to them, okay, he's the one that swabbed the shirt. What part of the shirt did he swab?
What are you talking about?
We don't know.
Michael Proctor swabbed the shirt? A criminologist swabbed the shirt. That was demonstrated in the first trial. Michael Proctor didn't swab anything. I don't even know what you're talking about. This is just fiction at this point.
So then what swabs was it that Michael Proctor had sent into the lab that the lab did not have access to? What product was that?
Criminalistic
they tested it.
Swabbing.
The criminologist swabbed this over a year and a half later at the request of the defense, and was sent to a lab that both sides agreed to. Michael Proctor had nothing to do with any of this.
So what product was it that Proctor had swabbed and sent into the lab that the lab did not have access to?
That's
the
just
criminologist
social media
swabbed
frenzy,
the
Nick.
shirt, swabbed the clothing. Yeah, they swabbed the clothing. She demonstrated.
Listen, I'm gonna look it up and I'll get back to it on Tuesday. But I was almost positive that it was the shirt that Proctor had a hand in.
All right, so Wayne.
No, she demonstrated. I know she had it in her car. Proctor had it in his car and took a laundromat. I remember your theory from the first trial. I mean, the clothing was brought to the evidence room at the DA's office, which is where you'd expect it to be. And 6 weeks later, it was sent to the lab. It was never missing. It was always at the evidence room from that night. So there's no missing clothing. It was never hanging around in Michael Proctor, the back of his car. He didn't take the coin op, and he didn't do any swabbing.
All right, Wayne, I want you to take a look at the big picture now. During the prosecution case, we were focused on timeline. Now we're talking about Taillight and dog bites? Where do you think the jury ends up landing on where their focus is going to be? Because I know in the first trial it was all about Proctor, right? This trial doesn't seem to be that way. It doesn't seem to be about Proctor. He's not going to testify, but initially we were focused on the timeline, the phone, and the expert's interpretation of that information. And now the defense is showing us taillight issues. They're showing us dog bites. What do you think, Wayne? We lost Wayne. Okay.
You have me?
Do we have him? I'm by myself.
Yeah.
Where did everybody go? Oh, he's back. 10 seconds, Wayne. Close us out here.
I think they're going to focus on the taillight. It's very, very clear evidence. It's simple evidence. You don't need an expert to explain it. And you have a third-party witness who testified to it, who's a reliable witness. I think they're going to focus on it.
All right. Big thanks. We're going to see him again, folks. This trial's not over. Joseph Krowski Jr., Wayne Dennison, Kevin Lenahan, and Nick Rocco, thank you all so much. When we come back, I'll reveal something else you need to know tonight. Plus, coming up next hour. Tonight on Vinnie Politan Investigates, from the beginning, everyone has been debating the cause of the wounds on John O'Keefe's right forearm. Dog bite or tail light? Which one makes more sense? Tonight, we investigate.
Court TV's Vinnie Politan with the latest and breaking true crime stories.
Now, let's look at the other side of all of that.
Vinnie Politan Investigates, coming up next, only on Court TV.
Karen Reed is in the midst of the retrial of the century.
She is factually innocent. She's guilty. There's something wrong in this county.
Come at me.
The Karen Reed murder retrial. Live coverage weekday mornings, 8, 7 Central on Court TV.
Time to reveal something else you need to know tonight. You may have an idea of who's behind the board. Yes, it is Diddy, trial day 15. Big witness today. His name is Eddie Garcia. He worked at the hotel where that infamous Cassie video was uncovered. Kelly Craft is in New York City with the latest tonight.
Vinnie, defense counsel for Sean Combs worked late into the night tonight. They had asked the judge if they could stay late to review some text messages and some exhibits with Sean Combs. It was a busy day inside the courthouse today. Eddie Garcia, a former security guard at the Intercontinental Hotel, was on the stand testifying how Sean Combs paid him $100,000 for that hotel video, which shows Combs beating Cassie Ventura. Garcia testified that he gave his boss $50,000, $20,000 to another guard on duty at the time of the beating video, and then kept $30,000 for himself. He said he bought a used car with the money. He didn't deposit any of it in the bank or report it to the IRS. Also on the stand, Derek Ferguson, a former chief financial officer for Sean Combs. He was on cross and he was asked, did you see anyone enhance Mr. Combs' reputation or the reputation of the business through acts of prostitution? No, Ferguson said. Defense counsel then asked, did you see anyone enhance Mr. Combs' reputation or the reputation of the business through sex trafficking or forced labor? The judge then sustained an objection from the government to that question. And Vinnie, tomorrow in court, federal prosecutors are expected to call another alleged victim to the stand. This is a woman who is expected to testify that Sean Combs groped her and also dangled her over a hotel balcony. Proceedings get back underway at 9 a.m. Eastern. Vinnie, that's the latest from here in Lower Manhattan. We'll send it back to you.
Kelly Craft in New York City, thank you so much. All right, folks, take a look at your television screens. We have a missing child who needs your help tonight. This is Mark Cook. Mark is just 17 years old, missing out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. If you see Mark, take a look at his picture. If you see him, please make a call, make a difference. 911, 1-800-THE-LOST, or you call the Pittsburgh Police Department in Pennsylvania. That phone number's on your screen right now. Let's get Mark to a safe place tonight. Don't go anywhere. We've got another hour of live true crime. Vinnie Politan Investigates is next. In the meantime, please don't forget to hug the kids.